When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Hello everybody, how are we? Are we doing all right? Episode 36. I don't know why my voice is going like this, but I'm going to drop that now. Got a great guest on today. He is a Floridian. He is out in Florida, the home of the mouse, and he's the author of the book, What Just Happened? How to Bounce Back in Life so you can do more, have more, and be more. Being an eternal optimist, he has overcome many difficulties in his business and personal life which would have stopped others in their tracks. Financial difficulties, which he quite openly describes as extreme, physical difficulties, and of course, like many of us who have experienced over the years stress and problems, the one thing that generally suffers when we're under this kind of stress, relationship issues too. But it certainly hasn't always been doom and gloom, as he has enjoyed his share of business success, including building 3 different companies that have achieved revenues in excess of $1 million. So with all these ups and downs, and to coin a phrase which I'm not sure I should use, but it sounds right, being an expert in bouncebackability, he has taken all these life lessons and within the pages of his book teaches us how to turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones in 7 steps. He's been married to his beautiful wife Tasha for 16 years and has 3 kids, including teenage daughters Libby and Logan and a 6-year-old son Fisher. So now it's time to welcome to the show and start joining up dots the one and only Bouncebackability master, Mr. Jimmy Burgess. How are you today, Jimmy?
I'm great, David. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's absolute delight. So we're talking on Skype, but I believe that you are in Florida, the home of the mouse.
Yes, actually I am, and it's a little different in this area than most areas right now. The weather's great, and the beaches are great, and I'd encourage anybody to come visit Florida if they haven't ever done that before, or come back and visit again. And
if you want to see large people in white socks.
and black sandals.
Yeah,
it's sandals. Either sandals and socks, or yes, you nailed it.
Yeah, why do they do that? They must know that they do not look good.
And it always typically is accompanied by shorts where the belt loop is above the belly button. Also, if you've ever noticed that,
I notice it, but I wish I didn't notice it. I'll be honest.
I know.
It's not a good look. It really isn't.
It's not. It really isn't.
You've had a hell of a history, haven't you? So
yes, it's been a ride.
Yeah, it has been a ride. Has it been an enjoyable ride, or do you look back on certain bits and go, I wouldn't be where I am now without the sort of the dark and the light, or has it just been sort of enjoyable all the way through?
Well, obviously there are times when it's difficult. But you know what I found, David, really is that growth and comfort typically don't exist together. It's kind of hard for that to happen. But what a ride. I mean, and what's amazing is when you begin to look back, or when, as you put it, begin to join up the dots, you begin to see that some of the things that I thought were the worst things that could ever happen to me turned out to be some of the best things that actually shaped me and brought me to a place now where I'm better in all areas of my life. So it's hard to look back with anything that I would change, really. Obviously, just some stupid mistakes you make.
Go on, tell us a stupid mistake.
We all have those, don't we? I'm not going to go back to the college days or anything, but from a business perspective, you get to a point, and here's what happened to me. Really, is you get to a point where you begin to have some success, and especially if it changes quickly. And you go from, where in my case, I went from a situation where I was in a job that I left, and I began to kind of focus on the needs of other people, which really made a change for me. I left a job where I had an annual salary going out on my own, and within a year, that annual salary became my monthly income. Within 2 years, it became my average biweekly income. And when those things happen so fast, you kind of lose your calibration. And I was very guilty of that. I mean, I began to make decisions based on my pride and my ego. It just changed. I began to act like somebody I wasn't because I thought it was bulletproof. And when you do that, I made decisions one after the other that just made no sense. But I thought it was all about me. And when you do that, typically it ends in a rough way. And it did for me, a financial meltdown. We go from what should have been a blessing that should have carried my family and given us the ability to be set for life to I just keep making those bad decisions. The economy changes, and I end up, I'll never forget the date. It was May 4th, 2009. I'm sitting in a federal courthouse getting ready to have to claim bankruptcy with less than $500 to my name. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what in the world have you done? How could you put your family in this position? How could you let your ego change you to a point where you've made decisions that have literally taken something that was a blessing and made it a curse? And now here I was, 35 years old, having to completely start over financially. And when you make those decisions, it affects everything. But we were able to, in a way that I didn't realize it. It took me 3 years, David, to really go through that, and just that tailspin. It doesn't happen overnight. And I remember a few months before I was going to have to claim that bankruptcy, which basically meant I was starting over. And I just realized I can't keep doing this. I woke up every morning worried about and concerned about things that I couldn't control. And I finally got back off my heels from playing defense and began to move to my toes and play offense and focus on other people and how I could help them again. And that led to us being able to bounce back financially in a way that I didn't think was possible. I started a new company just a few months after bankruptcy that did extremely well. But it wasn't just that. It was not just the financial. It was the relationships. It was the health. It was everything in my life bounced back. And that thing that it actually took me going through and losing everything that money could buy in order to have and appreciate all the things that money couldn't buy.
So if you go back to corporate land, so you was in corporate America, and
right.
Was that the natural progression? Like most of us, we go through college, university, and then we think we must get a job. Did you have the sort of dreams to go off on your own while you were there, or was there a point in corporate land when you suddenly thought, no, I'm going to leave there and I'm going to create my own company and my own future? Was it a natural thing?
For me, it was always there. And I have friends of mine that they had a situation or they were let down in their job or their corporate position, to where they just said, enough is enough. For me, in that corporate position, the main thing that made me make the change was the dream had always been there. I believe dreams can lay dormant for years, but they never die. Mine had been laying dormant for years. I had been told, because of the amount of business that I was bringing into this corporate job, that at the end of the year, I was going to be taken care of financially. Well, the end of the year comes, and I sat around and waited on this, and expecting this. Well, it just didn't come. And I just remember thinking in my head, am I going to sit here and wait on somebody to tell me what I'm worth for the rest of my life?
And how old were you at this point?
I was 32 years old.
Okay.
It was a situation where, I had been in corporate life since leaving university for a number of years. And I always had these dreams, and I always felt like there was that opportunity, but I never took action. You know what I mean? I talked about it. And when I finally began to focus on the needs and what other people wanted and took action about it, everything changed pretty quick.
Do you know, my point was, I was in corporate land for many, many years, and I realized that one person could dictate my happiness. And I was doing a job and enjoying it, and I had a lovely manager and everything was going well. He left for a very good job up in London, and this new manager came in, and I won't tell you their names, but if you're listening, you know who you are. And they were a pig, an absolute pig. And my life just turned on its head. And I'd been doing a job for sort of 10, 15 years. I knew inside out. If anybody came up to me, could you do this? Yes, no problem at all. And it just flowed naturally. And to be honest, if I look back on it, I was probably losing my mojo anyway. It was too comfortable. I could just sort of do it with my eyes closed. But when this one person came in and suddenly started telling me how to do the job that I knew better than anyone else, I don't know if it was ego. I don't know if it was just resentment of being told. But that was the moment for me. Not that I was wanting to focus in on other people and provide value like you did, which was a great thing to do. I just thought to myself, it's time to make a move because that person can control my happiness. And I'm better off out on my own, striving in the world, creating a path that it may not go right, but I haven't got anyone telling me that I'm doing it wrong. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And now, when I'm sure when that new person came in, you were bitter a little bit, you were angry a little bit, but now looking back, I mean, look where you are now. It was because of that. It almost had to get to that point where you had to make a change, and you knew you had to make a change for you to act on it.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think sometimes we view things that happen to us or around us. We view them with a short-term view rather than a long-term lens. And it really makes a difference when you realize those things, because typically the best growth that I have in my life is during difficult times. And so, sometimes I think that we want these easy lives, and you just don't grow if you settle in and you get used to doing things a certain way.
But so many people out there don't strive to change, do they? They will just go in every day doing a job that they hate, working with people they hate, just trying to get through to the Friday when they can go down and have a few drinks with people they hate to go around that vicious circle all the time. And you almost say to them,
true.
Why are you here? You moan all the time about being in this job. Why are you here? But they still don't actually shake themselves up to do anything about it. So do you have to be like a special person, or do you just have to have had enough at that moment in your life to make that decision of movement?
I think everybody has that opportunity. I think that sometimes, it's kind of one of these things of that, when someone's pregnant, the baby's going to come sooner or later. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And I think some people it's harder for them to make that move. They're fearful. I think the biggest thing is that people aren't around other people that are doing things. I can imagine your perspective, how it's changed by doing this podcast and the people you're talking to. I remember when I left that job, the first lunch meeting I had with somebody that was making over $1 million a year. I just had never really been around people like that. And I walked away from it and I went, this is just a normal guy. He's not any different than me. And then all of a sudden you begin to look around the room, and there are people that are striving to be good instead of spending your whole day in a workplace where everybody's bitter, where everybody's just trying to get through the day. When you connect with people that are doing things, I think you almost sometimes have to see before you can be. And so, my encouragement would be, if there's somebody out there that's like, I just hate my job, I hate my life, get around people that love it. Their job, when I first started looking for them, they weren't around me, to be perfectly frank. I didn't have anybody that I could go spend time with. So what I did is I actually began to read biographies of people that had huge achievements in their life, that had made impact in the world. It didn't even really matter to me what they did, if it was in relation to what I was doing. I just wanted to know what they were thinking. What was it that pushed them? And when you do that, it prompts those things, and you begin to notice things around you you just hadn't been noticing before.
It is. This shows obviously about yourself, but you're touching on so many points that I feel a strong, more than a vibe towards. But it's like putting new glasses on, and you don't realise. I worked. I went in every day and did my work, and I come home and I looked after the family and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm doing this. I can't wait for the morning to start.
Right. You don't need an alarm clock.
Yeah. The fact that I get to speak to people day in, day out now, and on the great scheme of things, it's probably easy work. I put a microphone on, they put a microphone on, we have a little chat and we record, and I bang it out to the world. Is it hard? No. Was there a lot of preparation towards it? Yes. Was there a lot of fear that it wasn't going to work? You betcha there was. could I have done with people around me that was doing the same thing? Yeah, absolutely. And I did exactly the same thing as you. I surrounded myself mentally with people who were doing what I wanted to do. Now, I only know them by email. I only know them by dropping a few lines on Facebook. But once I started to connect with these people, I realized, as you were saying, they're no different than me. They're just on a different timeline, and they've started earlier on the path that I want to do. And I'm not creating anything world famous. If you're listening out there, guys, there are other podcasts, and you can listen to 1,000, 1,000,000 of them. I don't know how many there are out there, so it's not a new thing. But you need to have a passion to follow your own intuition and your own skill, talent, passion, whatever you're going to call it, just to be as good as you can in your field. And if you are, and you're providing value to people, then, as Jimmy is saying, and all the guests are saying, you're going to get it back tenfold. And most importantly, you're going to enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
Oh, I love it. I'll be honest. There used to be a time when I was at work at my job that I would look at the clock to say, okay, there's a big difference in sitting at a job and saying, oh, I've got 4 more hours till 5 o'clock and I can get out of here. I'll give you an example. The other night, I'm sitting at my office and it's 10:30 at night and I'm thinking, I have got to get some sleep. I've got to leave here in the next hour and a half. I hate to, but I've got to get some sleep so I can get back at it in the morning. That's a big difference. It's a difference in everything. And here's the thing that happens too is we're not just talking about your work. When you get excited about life, everything changes. You begin to become magnetic to other people that are excited about life. When I went through my financial struggle, I don't know if everybody realizes this, but the opposite of being at ease is disease. Well, when you're in a financial struggle and you're losing,
I didn't know that.
Literally, yeah. And so when you're losing financially millions of dollars and you're losing everything that you had worked for, you're not at ease. That's the last thing you are, and it manifests. It just did with me, where I ended up losing my voice for 3 months. And at 36 years old, being at a world-renowned voice clinic in Nashville, Tennessee, at Vanderbilt Voice Clinic, and them telling me that they saw a mass on my throat, and I'm like, what in the world, is going on here? But the whole key is when you get excited about life, it affects everything. It makes me want to be a better husband, be a better father. It makes me want to physically be in a condition that I can be as capable as possible to carry out the task that I feel I've been given to share a message of hope to everybody I come into contact with. Boy, when those things happen, it's when life really is what it's supposed to be. Because I've been on both ends of the spectrum. It's not like I'm some hocus pocus guy that's always had good things. I mean, you're talking to somebody that's been on both ends of the spectrum, and I believe with all my heart that it all starts with my attitude.
So going back right to sort of kid time, little Jimmy, were you that type of person even back then? Were you always a bounce-backability kind of child?
Absolutely. It wasn't that my situation was bad or different, but I remember, at 9 years old, my parents get divorced. Everything that I thought was great, kind of falls apart. And I just remember, and listen, I just remember coming to a point at a pretty young age that, I've got both parents that love me. But at some point, if I'm going to make my dreams come true, if I'm going to make it in the world, it's on me. And so, yeah, what would have been, would a lot of people just dwell on, and it sets them back and they never get past some of the bitterness. I just remember at a young age deciding that, I'm going to face struggles like this. I got two choices. I can either get bitter or I can get better. And I have never, ever regretted when I've chosen to get better. And so I think there's probably people listening that can look back, and there's something in the past. This may have been 10, 20 years ago that happened to them that they just haven't gotten past. And what I finally had to do and it was in everything I've ever done, is I almost had to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? I can't change a thing about my past, but I've got complete control over my future. And I'm going to stop today, and I'm not going to continue to let my past control my future, which it was doing to a certain extent. And in a lot of people's lives, a bad relationship or something that happened 10, 20 years ago is still affecting them today. There comes a point where you've just got to cut it out and just begin to focus on your future instead of dwelling on your past.
Well, it's always about yourself, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Even
really is.
If the relationship was, the crappiest one you could ever had, ultimately you've played your part in being crap.
Yeah. And that's funny you mentioned that, because what I found when I was putting everything together and we began to look back and I began to formulate the book is that's the first thing you've got to do is admit and take responsibility for your part in whatever happened. Now, listen, I had business partners that did things to me that I had no control over. There was nothing I could do, but when I look and I dug deeper, I had to take responsibility for the fact that I saw red flags that they could do these kind of things, but I still brought them in as partners. So I allowed them to get into a position to harm me. I've got a
Why do you think you did that, Jimmy?
I think that I was motivated by the fact that I got my ego at a point where, listen, I'm making this kind of money. I just made decisions that I wouldn't normally make because of the amount of possible financial gain, to be perfectly honest. I let greed make decisions rather than taking the time and figuring out that, that there are always opportunities. Some of them just aren't for us, and there's always another opportunity. And so, I had to grow up to a certain level and realize, like we were talking about earlier, that I'm going to end up being the people I spend the most time with. And that's a scary thought sometimes. If the 5 people the old Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I've found that to be so true because in times that I was struggling, when I looked around at who I was spending the most time with, they were struggling too.
Yes.
and typically with the same things I was struggling with. So when you begin to focus and spend time with those people that are doing the things you want to do, it's just a natural progression that you're going to end up becoming the people you spend time with.
Because I actually sacked a lot of my friends. I realized that when I was going out for a few beers and stuff, and I'm a family man, so it didn't happen very often, but I had a group of friends that I knew from when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, and we'd sort of like grown up together. And then it got to a point where we'd see each other, weddings and funerals, basically, and odd occasions. And I realized that they didn't actually bring anything to me. Now, it's all right. You can have friends that, don't bring anything to the table. You just enjoy their company. But I actually realized that they were sort of holding me back somehow, because I was always the person going, come on, we can do this, we can do that. Why don't we do this? It'd be brilliant, it'd be fun. And they'd be the ones that, oh, no, I can't really do this, I can't really do that. So because of that sort of negative approach, we didn't actually do anything. And I sat there one day and I thought, I'm going to sack them. And I sent emails to them, and some of them I did face-to-face that I could see. And I actually said to them, I don't think our relationship is going anymore. It was great when we were younger, but things moved on. If you would like to meet up and have a drink and stuff, then fine, let me know. And if you don't, just don't respond to this. And I ended up with like 4 really good close friends that I can really rely and trust. And they know who I am and what I'm aiming to achieve. And when we are out and I'm going on one of my little passionate rants, which I can do quite easily, they let me go with it, and they don't sort of go, oh, here he goes again, or, okay, it's all right for him. And I think that's what I did. And I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but I have actually ended up with 4 to 5 people that I surround myself with. You got to do that.
And you really have to do that, because here's the bottom line. It's not even just that they don't bring anything to the table, but typically sometimes they're the ones that can hurt the most, because, people can be unsupportive, but what we've got to realize is there are a lot of people out there that, because they're not willing to do the sacrifices and pay the price that we pay to get to where we want to be, or to have the vision for the future that we have, they'd rather tear you down than lift you up, because it gives them the ability in their insecurity to feel better about not doing what they're doing. Here's what's kind of neat. Dave, when I was young, my dad used to take us out. I lived around the coast, and we would go out and catch blue crabs. These crabs that we would have a crab boil with. He would take my brother and a couple of my friends. We would go out onto this shallow water area. The tide would drift to the boat. He would cut the boat off and drift across. He would put one of these tin wash tubs, if you've ever seen them, that are about as long as your arm across. We would float it behind the boat, and he would point the crabs out. My friends and I would go dip the crabs, and we would put them into that wash tub that was floating tied behind the boat. Well, it didn't take long in this area. We would fill that all the way to the top. And I would go to my dad and I would say, Dad, we need to put the top on this one day. These crabs, all they've got to do is just crawl to the side and they just fall out to safety. And he said, no, son, just watch them. We really don't have to. So I'm sitting back there watching this. And finally, one of these crabs realized, I'm getting out of here. We're about to get boiled. This is crazy. And so he begins to crawl to the side. And just as he's about to go over the side, one of the other crabs that's in that mess reaches up with his pinchers, grabs him, and pulls him back down in the mess. Now that crab begins to shake and do all this stuff, but he won't let go. As a matter of fact, we would boil the crabs, and when we would dump the crabs out to begin to crack them to eat them, that crab would actually hold on to the death of that other crab. The problem is that a lot of times we don't even realize it, but we've got people around us that they would rather pull us down back into a mess so that they don't feel bad about their situation rather than lift us up and help us get back to safety. You just can't function when you've got people around you like that and get to the level that you're wanting to get to. It's just, it really is difficult unless you have those people that are lifting you up and helping you move forward.
What about family then? The ones that love you. Now, a lot of the time, I know that people that I speak to say to me, my family don't really understand what I'm aiming to do. So it's not that they're not supportive. It's not that they want to hold them back. They just don't really understand the passion that person's got. And because it's not in their timeline of life, especially parents, because parents, come from a generation where they would have gone off and got a job and did it for 40 years and that was it. But now with our generation, and we've got the chance of the internet and making connections globally,
right?
Parents and family sometimes have a difficulty supporting that person, but it's not because they don't love them. They just don't want them to fail, I suppose.
Right. I tell you what it was for me, and I'm going to be very blunt because there's some people that need to hear this. Part of it for me is that I had started things before and never finished them. And so I had not given proof that I would follow through. Things completely changed when I finally followed through. You see, what I found for me at least, and I find for coaching clients of mine is that I always talked about things. And, it's almost the sky is falling, kind of thing, Chicken Little, I mean, at some point you got to quit talking and start acting. And here's the thing is when you have a vision and you have action, people follow it. So when you have passion and when you speak and act in a passionate way, that begins to win people over. When you've started and said, I want to try this, that's totally different than saying, I'm going to do this.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, it's understandable. I mean, looking back now, understand why my wife, who was completely supportive, but why she would question it. But see, here's what's happened now is after me having, a couple of really good runs and falling back once, when I began new things now, when I told my wife I was writing a book, and you got to understand, I mean, well, you can hear it in I'm not the typical published author. You know what I mean? It's not and that's what's amazing. What you were talking about, what's happened these days is that, literally I've always been a storyteller, but I've never been a writer. And so when I told my wife I was going to write a book, she's like, oh, that's a great idea. But she, what she's learned is that when I say something and I say I'm going to, that now I've gotten some equity built up where she understands that I'm serious.
Yeah.
10 years ago in our marriage, when I would say, I'm thinking about doing this. Ooh, I don't know if you ought to do that. It would be the response because it was a total different mindset. So I just think sometimes you got to start acting before you start talking.
And you can, you can start for literally no money at all now, can't you? That's the thing that I want people to know out there. The only thing it's going to cost you to make momentum in your life is time. You might have to get up earlier in the morning or work in the evenings after work, whatever. But actually, you can do amazing things just by lifting your laptop up and putting your computer on. And it really doesn't cost you anything than what you're probably paying for already with your broadband connection and whatever.
Yeah. Here's what's exciting, David, and I tell people this. I believe you ask about, is it just the few, the chosen, that have that ability to excel in life? And here's the bottom line is I believe every single one of us has something that nobody ever had to teach us how to do. Nobody ever had to teach you how to have a conversation with someone the way that you and I are talking now. It was natural. That was a natural gift that you had. Now you can increase it and get better at it. But that's something that you naturally enjoy communicating. It's evident. You can hear it in your voice. Nobody ever had to teach you that. That's your gift. Everybody has something that if they drift in their mind to what they would love to do or what they thought about doing, that's where your purpose typically lies. And what I found is what's great about today and what you're saying is that you want to know how to make your dream a reality and how to monetize your dream, how to take your dream to a point where it can be a full-time living. All you got to do is go on YouTube or Google and just punch in how to make money doing whatever it is for you. And the world is at your fingertips. There is so much free training out there.
How do people know that, though, Jimmy? Somebody sitting there out there, I can say to loads of people, what's your talent? And they will go, oh, I haven't got a talent. So how do people find that one thing that they can enjoy, make money on, and provide value to the world? How can they find that thing?
I would say, what is it that you do on your off time? Do you love having a garden? Do you love playing golf? Do you love spending time with your family? Do you love internet, understanding marketing? Do you love encouraging other people? What is it that think of it this way, and I just had this conversation with one of my coaching clients. What is it? Because they were trying to figure out, well, I'm not really sure. And here's what I had them do, the exercise I have them do. I said, here's what I want you to do is I want you to tell me your ideal day. If money was no object and you were going to do something today, what would it be? What would you love to do today or tomorrow where you'd be so excited to wake up in the morning? And what I found is whatever that is, that somewhere in that is where you're supposed to be. I believe that every single one of us has got something inside us that we've been given that we're supposed to do. And in reality, it's our job to find it and then take action on it. And so if you aren't sure, think of what your ideal day would involve. Who would be around? Who would you encourage? Here's something else is who would you help? Because when you begin to focus on not just, I would love to go do this, who is it that if you were able to help those people or teach somebody how to do that it would just get your juices flowing. Once you find that, it may not be immediate. It's a process, but you're heading in the direction of finding out what it is for you.
It's all gut, isn't it? It's all intuition. I'm going to play Steve Jobs' speech now, which is the theme of the show, and I play it literally every show. So all the listeners out there, I do apologise, but hey, it's my show, so I can do what I want. But I'm going to click this because I have a theory about this, and I've said this on numerous speeches, that when Steve Jobs is talking about going with your gut intuition and going with destiny and karma, as we're going to hear, actually, if all of us sit there and just think back over our life of the things that we enjoy the most, that is the path we should be on. And that is where our talent is, exactly as you're saying. So every single one of us really knows our path. We just don't give ourselves chance to reflect and look back on the things that we suddenly realised that when we was doing it, it didn't feel like work. We was just in the zone. So I'm just going to play this speech, and then I'd like to get your spin on that.
Great speech.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
It's amazing, isn't it? I listen to that literally every day, and I remember the first time that was ever given to me on a bit of scrappy paper, and I read it just because I had 5 minutes. And as soon as I finished it, I read it again. And a lot of the speech I can't really remember. It was just that bit there that really struck a chord with me. And it has struck a chord with so many people, because when I started getting this show together and I sort of sent out the sort of requests for getting guests on, literally every single person came back and went, I know the speech you're talking about. I've got it pinned on my fridge. I've got it.
Right.
And it's just out there, isn't it? It's out there for all of us to look. And
it is.
I'd love to know if when he was jotting it down, whether he was, watching telly at the same time and just doing it sort of offhand, or whether he realised what impact he was going to have on the world by doing that.
I think that what's great about that, and what's great about the internet now, as the way we connected, you just found a video that I'd shot with a $60 camera, thousands of miles away from you, and my story resonated with you. I think we all have a story. There's something's happened in each of our lives to bring us to where we are. And I believe if you're facing a struggle also, and you're not sure of how to get out of it, you have to kind of focus on why you need to get out of it. Who needs to see you overcome whatever it is you're facing? And there's a reason you're there. Like Steve Jobs mentions, everything connects once you look backwards. And I can now look back and see that the financial strain that I went through, the situation with my health, the strains relationship-wise, it has really brought me to this place where everything has kind of fallen into place, and all of these dots have started to make sense. And I think everybody can do that if they'll simply do as he said and begin to look back and see especially the struggles you went through. What did you learn from those that now you can help someone else come through?
What was your biggest struggle? If you look back over everything that you've spoken about, and the sort of the ego taking control, the financial difficulties, finding your path, all that kind of stuff, is there one dot that really is the central dot to your life?
Well, there's one theme, and that was through the good times and through the bad, which was self-belief, and believing that I could do what I felt I was created to do, believing that I was good enough. At times when I went through the financial struggle, it was believing that maybe because I had acted and made some of the decisions that I made and done some of the things that I did, that maybe I deserved it, that struggle. And when I finally switched back to believing that, I remember Les Brown. If you've ever heard the big booming voice of the motivational speaker Les Brown,
no, I haven't.
It's tremendous. He came on, and I knew when I was in this, I was just living in this pool of negativity where I was just, when I was going through everything, that I had to change that. And I began to flood my mind with positivity again. I remember in particular, it was like he came on with that big booming voice, and he said, "Your struggle has not come to stay, it's come to pass." Man, David, it was like boom, it just hit me right in my soul. And all of a sudden I realized that, spring always comes after winter. And, so when I've been in times of difficulty, when I finally flipped the switch and I changed my belief system to the fact that, I began to concentrate it on my future instead of the mess I was in. And I began to believe that tomorrow was going to be better than today. No matter how good things were going or how bad things were going, as long as I had that belief that things were going to get better, everything else that's my dot. If I'm in a time of trouble, if I can focus on the fact that, I'm struggling right now, but I can guarantee you I'm going to do things today to where I'm not going to be struggling tomorrow, and that things are going to be better. That hope in the future is so vitally important. So for me, it's really mental. It's mental for me.
Do you, and I don't really try to touch on this subject because I know so many people think it's a bit woo-woo, but do you believe in the law of attraction?
Yeah, I do, with one caveat. I believe that that opportunities come to motion. It's attracted to motion. In other words, you can't just, when you go through the secret program and those things that I think so many people, it influenced so many people. When you realize that you can't just think things into existence, you can begin to think and begin to take action. And I just believe that we live in a world where there is cause and effect. And so, if I believe that I can do something and I begin to take actions towards it, everything falls into place. There's no doubt. And I believe here's kind of how I would make a synopsis of the law of attraction. Is sometimes I think all the opportunities are around us, but we just don't notice them. But when we begin to focus on them, we begin to notice them. I'll give you a perfect example. My wife gets a white Buick Rendezvous car, an SUV type car, maybe 6 months ago. I never even knew what that was. I'd never seen them before, never noticed them. The day after she gets it, I'm driving down the road and I see this white Buick Rendezvous coming towards me. And I said, oh, well, there's my wife coming in her new car. It wasn't her. All of a sudden I round the corner and there's another white Buick Rendezvous. And then there's another one and none of them are her. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world? I mean, was it just because my wife got a white Buick Rendezvous that everybody got one, or were they there the whole time, but my consciousness was not focused on those white Buick Rendezvous? You see, I think sometimes what happens is when we begin to focus on certain things, a lot of times they've been there all along. We just didn't see them.
Yeah,
we just didn't see those opportunities.
I always call that the pregnant woman situation, where when my wife was pregnant, all I saw was pregnant women everywhere.
Right.
And as soon as she had the baby, I never saw pregnant women. I just saw people with babies. And then
That's right.
It just keeps on sort of moving on. As you say, your focus is on that area.
So think of it this way, David. If your focus is on that, everything that happens to me is bad, I believe the things that we focus on expand. So consequently, we begin to look for things in our subconscious mind to make that true. You know what I mean? Whereas think of the days that you wake up and for whatever reason, it just starts off good. And you're like, this is my day. Everything's going my way. Now, all of a sudden, you begin to notice and realize all of those things around you throughout that day that come and verify what you believe.
Yes, yeah.
And so I just think a lot of it with the law of attraction is our consciousness of what's available to us. I think everything we need is all around us.
Yeah,
we live
I
in such a world of abundance, but are you tapping into that, or are you focusing on what you don't have rather than all of the things that you do have?
Because I think the thing that the book that moved me on, certainly to create my own path, was it's incredibly old now, The Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Great.
And I kept on seeing that. I kept on seeing it, and I'd go on a website and somebody mentioned it, and I'd see it, and I must have been seeing it for about 3 years before I finally thought, oh, I'm going to buy this. And that was the thing that when I started reading it, I thought to myself, my God, there is a plan to it, and it all ties to action. If you sit on your backside watching telly every night, all you're going to get is a sore backside and sore eyes from watching the telly. But if you actually take action on a daily basis, I've had some things happen to me recently, which kind of blow my mind, really, and I kind of think, well, how the hell did that happen? But of course it happened because I'm doing stuff which has affected something, and that's affected something, and it's moved on, cause and effect, like you say. But if I wasn't doing that, then those, and they are, amazing things. And I think to myself, just little old me, why is this happening to me? Why am I talking to Jimmy Burgess, as you say, thousands of miles away? Because it led from something I did to something I did to something I did. And from Jimmy Burgess, it will move on to something else. And, you could literally change your world, couldn't you? Just one dot at a time, really. But you've got to start pushing against those dots.
And let me tell you something. This is not something that you and I have just figured out. I tell this all the time, and so I have it memorized. I think about this, as far as the things that we think about is what becomes. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, thousands of years ago said, a man's life is what his thoughts make of it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, a man is what he thinks about all day long. Norman Vincent Peale, that we, it said the law of success simply says if you think in negative terms, you'll get negative results. But if you think in positive terms, you'll get positive results. And even you can go back even further, thousands of years. My favorite book puts it this way: as a man thinketh in his heart, so he shall be. So this is not something that's new. This isn't something that you and I are just floating out there that we've come across. This has been around throughout history.
Come on, claim it for ourselves. I'll go off with it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Trademark.
But that's what's great about it is that law of success, in my opinion, that law of success that we're talking about, that what you think about you become, and what you focus on begins to expand. It's not some hocus pocus out there kind of thing. It's something that it's really yourself creating those situations and understanding that they're around you.
Yeah, you have something, you have an idea, and it pops into your head, and you think that would be good. I've got no idea how to do that in any shape or form. And you can either let it float out of your mind, or you can think about it. And you think about it, and days will pass and weeks will pass, and you still can't think how you can possibly do that. And then you'll be eating your dinner and just about to put a sausage in your mouth, and bang! I know how I can start that. And it's because you've been thinking, but ultimately those solutions come to you. And it is incredible, really, what you can achieve just by thinking about it. Because I believe there's two types of kind of genius, I suppose. There's the ones who can create stuff that's never been created before. And so they've never seen it, they've never touched it, they've never experienced it, but they can come up with that idea which can change the world, like, Henry Ford and the car, for example. And then there's the other people who can see something and know how to improve upon it. And the only way they can do either of those things is by actually thinking about the problem. It seems simple. I'm not saying to all the listeners out there that you're going to suddenly come up with some life-changing, world-dominating, concept just by sitting there on the train each morning having a think to yourself. But I do promise you, if you've got something that's on your mind or something that you want to do and you don't know how to do it, you've got more chance of doing it by actually thinking it through.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, when things really begin to change, is when you move from saying, I don't know how to do that, to I'm going to figure out how to do that. Once that change happens, then things begin to change. I'll give you a hint, and this is not some big secret, but literally this was the key to me having, a seven-figure income at one time. It is, if you'll figure out a problem that a lot of people have and find a solution, everything else, people will be begging to give you money. So if you're in a situation where you're looking around and you know that there's a large group of people that are looking for whatever it is, and you provide that, and you provide it in a way that they feel good about it and that it helps them, just do that, and everything else, you'll be amazed at how things will change. I spent so much time there focusing on myself and what I'd get out of the deal. And when I did that, it was a very small place to be, if that makes sense. Once I began to focus on the needs of others, and really I wasn't even thinking about the money. I was just excited because people were excited about me giving them something they've been looking for. When that happens, people are excited to do business with you. It's not even about business. People become friends rather than business associates. There's a difference between helping someone and giving them something that they need or want than selling somebody something.
Because people are drunk on passion, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love passion? And I mean, who doesn't love being around people that are excited? I love the way Brendan Burchard says it too, as far as changing your focus. There's really two types of people. There are the people that when you go in a room, they're like, here I am. And then he says, but the people that really make an impact are the ones that when they enter a room, they say, "Oh, there you are." That's a total different mindset.
Which
you know,
one
as
are
far
you,
as
Jimmy? Which one are you?
I am the person that, oh, there you are. At least that's who I strive to be. And at times when I've had my most success, that's who I am. The times when I'm trying to, blow my own horn and, oh, look at me. It's just not a, who wants to be around that? You know what I mean? Who wants to be around the guy that all he does is talk about himself? I want to be around the guy that's like, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about how, I love people's stories. I think that's what's the driving force behind you putting together this podcast is that you love the stories. You love to be able to bring other people's triumphs and struggles, and that other people that are listening right now that can relate to and say, you know what, I'm that guy. I'm that guy that has been there where everything around him was whirling around. And if he can do it, because if he can do it, I can see similarities between he and I, then I can do it. Boy, that's impactful. That makes all the difference.
I think that's absolutely true. I think, I keep on saying the same thing because there isn't that much you can say on these subjects really, other than do something. Nike say just do it, and or Richard Branson says, what's he say? Screw it, just do it.
Right. And it's funny that you've even brought that up. That's the subtitle of my book is, how to bounce back in life so you can do more, because it all starts with doing more. No one ever got hurt by working harder. Nothing worse ever happens by working harder. But the title kind of infers that it's about money. It's not even about money. If you do more, you have the ability to have more, and then you can be more. What money gives you the ability to do, which is tremendous, is all of a sudden you become. There's a big difference, because I've been on both sides of my life in being the beneficiary and being the benefactor. Wow, is it exciting when you see somebody that needs help and you can give it to them. And the times when I was playing small and limiting myself and basically just focused on myself, I didn't even notice the opportunities to make a difference in other people's lives. When I was really focused on other people, and I had the opportunities, man, that's what it's all about. I mean, I'll just tell you from experience, when you're in a position where you're doing more and you end up being more, in other words, being more of who you were created to be, being a better husband, being a better father, being a better friend, being a better person that makes an impact and encourages and inspires other people. That's what it's all about. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. This money, I can tell you, it will come and it will go. But the people that I have been able to hear their stories and they've shaped my life, that's who I remember. That's the things I remember. Those times with my kids, those times with those people that, you just look back. I mean, we can all look back. There was a time you can look back, and that one night, that special date when you realized that you were sitting across the table from the person that you were meant to spend the rest of your life with. Those moments that just really made an impact. That's what it's all about. And if you're going to have more of those moments, you've got to be doing what it is that you were created to do, to find that passion so that you're excited about it. And then those people will just be drawn to you that you can make an impact on.
Do you know, Jimmy, I normally do a thing called the sermon on the mic when I hand over the presenting and I get you to talk about... I'm not going to do it.
I'm so sorry. I know I jumped the gun.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely what it's about. That is the message that these episodes are all about, and hopefully will convey across the globe to whatever areas somebody has got their headphones in and they're listening to us to talk today. But I just before I let you go, I'm very interested. I know you've got a big project coming up soon that you've been working towards. Would you be willing to just share with the audience what's going on in your life at the moment, which is, I know we were talking about before recording, that you're so excited about?
Yeah, it's great. And thank you for the opportunity to share this. The book really is my story. It is a very quick 80, less than 90 page read. And basically it is my story of changing my life and beginning to make. I made a lot of money, lost it all, the lessons I learned through that, and how to bounce back. So if anybody's in a struggle or if they aren't in a struggle, chances are if you're going to be in one at some point, it's just my story. And here's what's exciting about it is that the idea that things aren't going to change and aren't going to get better is just not true. I can tell you things, whatever you're in the middle of a struggle now, they've come to pass. They haven't come to stay. And there are steps that I've discovered on how to come through that. And that's what we share in the book. What's great about it is this week we're launching the book. They can get it on Kindle, and I know that your show is heard around the world. You can find the book on Amazon and, any of the Amazon European distribution centers, or in the United States or in Canada. But here's what's great about it. This week we are launching the book, and we are working on giving tons of bonuses for people. We just want to add value because I believe that comes back, tenfold. And so here's what we're doing. If you purchase the book this week and you email me, and my email address is jimmy@domorehavemore.com, jimmy@domorehavemore.com. We got some great bonuses for you. What we've got this week is the audio book will not be released for a few more weeks. We'll email you a copy of the audiobook free. We will also, I'm going to be available, and we're going to be scheduling for the next month free 45-minute coaching sessions where I can talk with someone, and if they're having trouble figuring out what their passion is, or they're not sure on the direction they want to do, or they just like to talk and they want to get around somebody that's positive, I'm doing free 45-minute coaching sessions for anyone that buys the book this week. They just email me at that, jimmy@domorehavemore.com, and we'll give them that bonus as well. On top of that, I know a guest that you've had, Kamanzi Constable, who's a good friend of mine. He and I are going to do a webinar next week for anyone that buys the book this week on how to monetize your dream. We're going to share with Kamanzi's story, my story, what we did. We're going to answer questions as long as there are questions out there, and that's going to be free if they purchase the book this week. So I'm really excited to be able to give those bonuses and during this launch week, and I hope some people take advantage of that, and I can't wait to hear from some people.
Well, why would you not? Why would you not with all those bonuses? And even if there wasn't any bonuses, I'm sure that the content is worth thousands in itself, because it's not just content that's thrown out there, it's content that's been built by experience, and that's hard to buy.
I tell people I'm not a professor. What you read in my book and what you hear from me is not theory. This isn't something that I think might work. These are things that I know because I've lived them. And so what you find in the book is I'm very transparent about the struggles I had because I believe that when we're transparent and people just find, they just see that you're real. You know what I mean? They can find in them that, that maybe the struggle they're going through is not as bad as they thought. And hopefully it inspires people to just get up and, like you say, just do it. Just do what you do. Whatever you're supposed to do, just do it.
Screw it, just do it.
Right. I like it.
There we go. Well, Jimmy, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's just coming up to an hour now, so I hope we haven't overrun. The content you've provided and the passion and the enthusiasm has actually shone out, If there is anyone out there listening, and I know there are thousands of people listening out there, but please drop us a line or fill out the comment sheet on the bottom of the website to tell us, your feelings about this episode, because I think that Jimmy is an absolute powerhouse, and he's an authentic powerhouse, so he deserves all the success he gets. And really, next time you've got something to tell us, come back, because Jimmy, there's always dots to join up, and by joining up dots, you can always build your future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.